Hi, Ms. Gaffney's class. I hear you guys are studying about physical and chemical changes, and you probably know a lot about it. But I'm just going to tell you a few things, and they're probably the same things your teacher told you. So we know that physical changes, we're changing like the shape or something like that. We're not really changing the actual chemical makeup, right? But in a chemical change, we have whole new compounds formed. And sometimes it's hard to tell, how do we know if it's a physical or a chemical change? And I always tell the kids there's four things that I like to look for to identify if it's a chemical change. They're not 100%. Sometimes things will do these and they aren't, but these are really good, especially if you got more than one. So if there's a color change, if gases are formed, if you see some bubbles in a solution or something like that, if energy is released, and usually that's heat, it could be light, or a precipitate is formed. And that's one that maybe you're not familiar with precipitate. I'll show you a little bit of what that is. So those are the things that we're looking for a lot of times. So, if I take a piece of paper and I just tear it in half, that's just a physical change. I still have paper, still the same compound that it was before. I've changed its shape, I've changed its size, maybe I crumple one up, but all of those are just physical changes. But if I light it on fire, we like to burn things in chemistry. If I light it on fire, that, went out. Let's try it again. Let's get it going better. This is a chemical change. And look, I've got some heat, that's energy. I can see, if you kind of look, you can kind of see some gases giving off a little bit. I've definitely got a color change, right? That paper's going from white to black, so that's a color change. So this has several of those things in it, which kind of tells me, hey, this must be a chemical change. I'm going to blow that out so we don't have that going anymore. Okay, so that's chemical change. I could also, we talked about bubbles. So I've got some hydrochloric acid here. Ooh, I better get my goggles on. Got some hydrochloric acid. I'm going to put a piece of magnesium. It's just a metal. It's just a strip of metal. I'm going to put it in there and take a look what happens. You see that bubbling? Those are gases. That's hydrogen gas. And in fact, if I do this right, I might actually be able to light it on fire. So we're going to let it build up just a little bit. And then I'm going to see if I can kind of make it pop. Did you hear that? We'll try it one more time. So that's hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas is burning. My stuff's still smoking here. I better put that out. We don't worry too much about fire in the chemistry room. We got lots of non-burnable things. Yeah, so that's an example of a chemical change. Right here, I've got some, let's see, what did I put there? That's my salt water. Okay, so I've got some salt water solution, and I'm going to use some silver nitrate, and I'm going to make a precipitate. And precipitates just mean that when I mix a couple like liquids together, that a solid forms, and that solid falls out of solution. That's what precipitate means, to kind of fall out of. Oops. So I'm going to take some of my silver nitrate solution, and I'm going to put it in here, and you can kind of see it's getting kind of white and cloudy. That's the precipitate. I could kind of set, if I let that sit, it'll all settle to the bottom. I could filter that out if I wanted to. That's silver nitrate and salt water. And let me show you another one. I think this one's kind of cool. This is potassium iodide, and I got some lead nitrate. This is going to be another precipitate. So I'm going to put some of this in there, and I get a yellow precipitate there. Okay, whoops, kind of there. Okay, so those things that I showed you are all good examples of chemical changes. And those are kind of the four things I always teach my kids to look for in a chemical change. I got a question for you though, okay? What if I do this? I'm gonna light this candle, and I want you to think about, if I get it lit, is this a physical or chemical change? What's going on here? So kind of take a look at what's happening. I've got my candle lit. I've got some wax kind of forming. Let's see if we can get, so you can kind of see some of that wax dripping off, right? So what kind of thing do I have here? I'll let you, if you want to, you can stop the tape and talk about that. Okay, so this is kind of a trick question a little bit because there's both. Okay, so the fire burning, that's definitely chemical change. I've got, you have to look at the wick, it's turning black, it's giving off heat. That's a couple of good examples. But also the wax, as it melts, that's just a physical change, isn't it? Change of states, those are physical. So it's actually both things. Hey, you know what I think would be cool? I know you guys are really good with technology. I would love if you found a couple of examples of physical or chemical changes and sent them to me to see what you guys know about physical and chemical changes. So if you want to do that, that'd be really cool. Thanks.